In this presentation, you will learn about narrative analysis. Narrative analysis is a qualitative research method for analyzing stories or narratives where researchers interpret stories delivered in the context of research and or are shared in everyday life. Established within the social sciences since the 1990s, it focuses on the narratives and stories for research. Narratives represent storied ways of knowing and communicating. Narratives can be found in various forms. They can be obtained from journals, conversations, recorded histories, autobiographies, media texts, transcripts of in depth interviews, policy documents, etc. It is interdisciplinary in nature and borrows from theoretical orientation like phenomenology, interactionism, and is applied to a wide range of social sciences like sociology, psychology, education, and anthropology. Narrative analysis is the basic human way of making sense of the world. We live storied lives. It is a necessary component of reality and identity. Narratives or stories occur when one or more speakers engage in sharing and recounting an experience or event. The telling of a story occupies multiple turns in the course of a conversation, and stories or narratives and may have structural similarities. Researchers conducting this type of analysis make substantial and meaningful interpretations and conclusions by focusing on several components like the way in which the story is structured, the functions the story serves, the substance of the story, and how the story is performed. They understand how research participants construct stories and narratives from their own individual personal experiences. The research participants first interpret their own lives through narrative, and then the researcher interprets the construction of the narrative as presented by the research participant. A common assumption of narrative methods is that people tell stories to help organize and make sense of their lives, and their storied accounts are functional and purposeful. Narrative sociology is based on the understanding that people construct meaning through the stories that define their everyday lives. Simply stated, narratives are the stories we tell one another. They order and connect events, forming meaningful patterns. What makes such diverse text narrative is sequence and consequence. Events are selected, organized, connected, and evaluated as meaningful for a particular audience. Critics argue that narrative research can make the interior self pretend to offer an authentic voice, unalloyed subjective truth, and idealize individual agency. Narrative approaches are ineffective for studies of large numbers of nameless and faceless subjects. Structured interviews that follow a question answer format or written surveys are less likely to capture narrative data. Narratives do not reflect the past, rather, they refract it. Imagination and strategic interests influence how storytellers choose to connect events and make them meaningful for others. Narratives are useful in research precisely because storytellers interpret the past rather than reproduce it as it was. The truths of narrative accounts are not in their faithful representations of a past world, but in the shifting connections they forge among past, present, and future. They provide a way for storytellers to reimagine lives. Building on C. Wright Mills, narrative analysis can create connections between personal biography and social structure, the personal and the political. In conclusion, since the narrative turn in the social sciences, narratives or stories have been the focus of considerable interest. This is because researchers have come to understand that personal, social, and cultural experiences are constructed through the sharing of stories. Narrative analysis can be used to examine how narratives reflect and shape social contexts. They are crucial as we use stories to make sense of the world. I hope you now have a better understanding of narrative analysis. Thank you for watching the presentation. Do like, subscribe, share, and leave your comments about this presentation or any other topics you would like to learn more about.